Welcome to Top 10 in 10, the official podcast of Site Midwest, where we ask 10 questions in just 10 minutes to the brightest minds in the incentive travel industry. From emerging trends and expert strategies to bold ideas that move the industry forward, we're covering it all, one guest at a time. Fast, insightful, and always relevant. This is Top 10 in 10. Let's dive in.
Welcome, Site Midwest. Here we are on our podcast again, and we are super excited to be here today with a very special guest, Kate Virtue. She is from Virtue Consulting, and she does some amazing talks on work-life balance and also fulfillment around your career. So, Katie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We just, in this very busy time of the year, it's December, we're going to be talking about work-life balance today, and sometimes during this time of year, it makes it very challenging to do so. But really, this work-life balance topic, I think, is not just pertaining to the holidays. It's pertaining to the entire year. I mean, how many times have we said, I'm on PTO, but I'm going to take my lunch, but we run into those scenarios all the time because we work in a very demanding career. And I am just really excited to hear about what you speak about, the 3 steps that you speak to that we all can learn from when we are engaging in work-life balance. So, Katie, I'd like you to introduce yourself a little bit, and then we're just going to hop right in.
Sure, Joanna. Yeah, and thank you for having me. And as you mentioned, we're really in this culture that celebrates, operating at 100%, running at this fast pace all the time. And so often it rewards productivity and perfection, but to the point that then it ends up sometimes, burning us out. And I experienced that myself. I went from being a Division I ice hockey player to climbing the corporate ladder to, having this goal to run the world. And now I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And I work with professionals to escape what I call this 100% trap, to beat burnout and then ultimately elevate their performance so that they can have a sustainable impact.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, that sounds really cool. And congratulations for all of those accomplishments, because an ice skater, that's incredible. I can't even go on ice. I mean, I would just completely collapse. So that is really cool. Well, in your consulting, you mentioned 3 steps and to giving us a better work-life balance. Can you share a little bit about what those 3 steps are?
Yeah, so I share these 3 steps of my sustainable performance playbook. And as I said, to escape this 100% trap, because when we run at a 100% pace all the time, that can actually end up leading to, depletion of our energy and not always maybe the excellence that we want. And so the first step is around defining your purpose and knowing really what is that internal compass, because so many of us dive into the workplace, maybe focus on, climbing the ladder or what other roles, titles we have without actually ever stepping back to think about what am I doing, in my role that I love, what is it that I enjoy, why do I, like doing this role in terms of helping others. And when we define that purpose, it then becomes this decision-making filter for us, so that when everything seems urgent or important, it can actually help kind of guide us and help us prioritize and remember what matters. So I'm sure there are lots of incentive event professionals, who love to see it all come together, see, the experience that they create. And sometimes you might not see that until the very end, and it's hard along that whole journey and process to remember the reasons why you're doing it. And then the second step is to really have your values defined, because those then become your standards for how you move throughout the day, how you set boundaries, where you set boundaries. There's a really great values exercise by Brené Brown. So if you look up her values exercise, it's something I used and really helped me to define my values and then to utilize those to know, okay, I need to make changes or set boundaries, but let me align those to these specific values that I hold. And then the third step is the critical one, because we can have this purpose, we can define these values, but if we actually don't take steps and implement behaviors, then, I say it all becomes BS, and we need to not make it BS. We need to actually implement those behaviors. And when I think about behaviors, I like to think about it in terms of micro steps, because breaking it down to small things that we can do is really more achievable in our mindset. And when you want to have a sustainable performance, it's really about those small daily actions. So, those behaviors can be anything from putting in small little blocks of time during your day to, 5 minutes between meetings to make sure you catch your breath, stand up for a minute, grab some water, those types of things, that little micro moments to re-energize us. Or it might be, you're going to have a run up of a lot of upcoming events and work and things you're doing. Do you have a day after that you really need to reset and recharge? Or, is it you need to put in creative thinking time when you're really trying to think strategically about, an event or a client you're working with? And so you need to block some of that within your calendar, and not time when you're, then bombarded with lots of messages or emails. So it's those types of, like I said, I call them kind of these micro steps, but things that then they compound over time if we are implementing them consistently and daily.
Okay, amazing. And you said, put every steps 1 and 2 into action. And we talked at a few things that are a little work related, right? In terms of those micro pieces. But how can we implement it on a personal to work? What would you recommend? I mean, we can take those, little breaks in between and everything like that, but in this world that we live in, it's so easy to get grabbed, right? As you
Yeah.
mentioned. I mean, especially we have so many different parts of the cycle when it comes to putting an event together. And sometimes that event might be 18 months out, 2 years out. We might be forecasting pretty far out. How would you recommend, as event professionals, we would really find that time personally to say, okay, now I'm turning my computer off and I need to step away, and really being okay with that, because it is about the action. It's not about the intention. I intend to turn my computer off at 5 o'clock, but really it's already 10 o'clock and I haven't turned my computer off,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
getting our heads around that.
Yeah. So I think first it's the way in which you go about it in terms of kind of reframing, because some of the common traps you can fall into are maybe you set too big of goals in terms of trying to change behavior. Like, I'm going to completely change my schedule, or you try to set too many. You're thinking, okay, I'm going to change this in my schedule, and I'm also going to start taking a lunch break to exercise, and I'm going to journal, and I'm going to do these things, and then it becomes too many things, and it's overwhelming. And as you said, sometimes it can be too disconnected from what the reality is, where it's not actually going to stick. So I think about reframing these changes that you want to make in terms of behavior. So as I mentioned, pick something small, something that it seems a little like those daily buffers, or I'm going to have one major priority per day instead of 5 things I'm trying to do. Maybe it's I'm going to take a conscious pause before responding to an email. So what's something small, so that it doesn't feel overwhelming and so hard to try to do. And then there's this concept of anchoring. If you've heard of the book about, habits and developing habits, and you can stack those habits. So, for example, if you have, every morning a first meeting of the day, you say, okay, before that meeting, I'm going to, mark down my one big priority for the day. Or I'm at an event on site, every time before I, put on my shoes to get started for that day at that event, I'm going to take a deep breath. For those who, are out there traveling, is there something within, when you're at the airport or where you're like, I'm going to take these 5 minutes while I'm sitting there at the gate waiting to turn everything off. And just have a few minutes. So if you think about things you're already doing within your day, what's something you can anchor to that, so that, okay, you identify what micro step would help you. How can you anchor it to something you're already doing? So that's that concept of habit stacking. And I think the other piece is, then the third part of that is being intentional about it. So, decide what that is maybe before you're in the pressure of being on site at an event. So maybe when you're at the very early stages of planning and preparing, like, identify it then and make that plan, versus I'm in the middle of a crisis and now all of a sudden I'm going to try to implement, breathing techniques consistently. So I think those are three good things to think about. What's the micro step? How can you anchor it to something? And can you do it in a time where you can be more intentional about it?
I love that. Thank you so much. I think that anchoring is so important. It's so valid because I think we all try really hard and we all have some of those little pieces. So we
Mhm.
just have to really build on those little pieces that we're already doing, because then it doesn't feel so overwhelming to us and we can feel successful in our process of getting to that balance. So I really love that idea of anchoring. Thank you
Yeah,
very
and I
much
think
for that.
whatever you come up with within those three areas, think about who you might need to communicate it to, because I often find that it's ourselves that put all this pressure and put all this urgency on it, when actually, if maybe you talked to your team, your clients, and communicated to say, hey, this is, something that is important to me as we go through this process. Like, are you okay with that? Or this is, something that I do, that makes sure that I can show up my best. Most often people are understanding about that, or they say, yeah, absolutely. So I find that we put a lot of the urgency on ourselves, especially when it comes to things like deadlines or timelines or emails. When they get sent over, we have this urgency to answer them, and sometimes even asking, oh, when do you need that back by? And you
Right.
might even get a response of, in a few days, or next week is fine, and you realize, oh, okay, I don't need to do that in the next hour when I had already planned to do something. So as much as you can have that communication and set expectations, as I said, with your team or clients, I think that helps as well. And most people realize, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we're all human, and
We're
it's okay
human.
to, have
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, Katie, this has been very informational. Thank you so, so much for joining us today. Thank you for all of your insight. We are, again, super excited to share this with everybody. Um, to everybody who's listening, we do want to share that Katie will be back with us in 2026 for her talk on, what do you call it? You have a special, what is it called?
Does the
She,
shoe
this is
does
the
the shoe
shoe,
fit? Talking
the shoe
about
fits. Yes.
titles, roles, and where
Hmm.
you're at, yeah, along your career journey.
along your career journey, and a few surprises along the way on that one. And so super excited about having her back in a few months. But thank you, Katie, so much for being here. We greatly appreciate your time, and everybody out there in Sight, looking forward to making sure you get some of that balance and finding those moments in your day to day where you can anchor on to things that you're already doing and building from there. So thank you to all, and look forward to next time. Okay,
Thank you.
bye.